Hey guys! Today I have another book review for you, and this is going to be Shadow of Summer by Daniel Abraham, the first book in the Long Price Quartet. I just finished this month, and I have been trying to figure out what I want to say about it for probably a week now, and nothing I come up with seems to do it justice, so I'm just going to try. This book is probably one of the best first books that I've ever read, and also probably one of the more unique fantasy books that I've read. It's not just because of the world that Abraham's built, it's not just because of his characterization. It also has to do with his writing style and how I felt while reading his prose. And I don't think that his prose is the best, most beautiful, most lyrical prose that I've ever read. However, I seamlessly fell into this book. It was just like everything he wanted to tell me was right there in my head. It was effortless to read, and his writing, his descriptions, it's almost as though you're not reading. And I know this sounds crazy, but you're just there. It's not ostentatious in any way. He doesn't describe things in odd, crazy manners like, Josiah Bancroft or other writers who use a lot of similes and things. He's not super flowery like Patrick Rothfuss can be, and he's not straight to the point like Hemingway either. It's just very simple and easy to read. And that's probably, honestly, one of my favorite things about this book. But there's just so much else in it that makes it so wonderful. Now, I know that there are people who have some qualms with this book, and one of the common complaints that I have heard is that people believe that it's too strange and that he doesn't explain enough of it in the front, so you can be confused with the names and the names of places and the way that the society is built and who is in what, like who's the student, who's the teacher, what are the different levels of, people in this society. I can see how people might complain about that. I personally was able to follow along. I made sure that I kind of like backtracked a little bit sometimes. For me as a reader, I personally don't mind that as long as it's not super crazy and I don't feel like Abraham did a bad job of it. One of the things that's, I think, why people get so confused at the beginning of this book when they're reading and they say, I can't follow everything, is because of the way Abraham wants to uncover things for you and how he wants you to discover the things about the world, because when you discover certain things, it goes along with the plot points. And so it's purposeful that you don't know a ton of it in the beginning. But it's different than like the blade itself when you're thrown into the first law, or just anything like that where you feel really jarred. I never felt jarred in here because it was like they were giving me little breadcrumbs as I was reading along. Also, another valid criticism that I've heard is that this book does not have enough action in it. And I can understand why people would say that because there aren't any battle scenes in this book. The most action you have is people traveling from one place to another fairly uneventfully, and conversations. This book is built on conversations between people. And the way Abraham writes his characters' voices, they're so unique, and he has a very good idea of exactly who his characters are, exactly how they'd speak. Like, never once did I think that, oh, this doesn't sound like something they would say. Like, you know who is talking, even if they don't say the name of the person, because he's so consistent with his characterization. I loved all of the characters in this story. And there's one character in particular that I really don't want to talk too much about him, because one of the main focuses of this book is this character. His name is Seedless, and it is an Andot or Andot, however you're supposed to pronounce it. And this being, this creature, like, it's just one of the big mysteries of this story, and one of Abraham's, I think, most creative inventions. And surrounding this one particular character, Seedless, are so many questions and themes that he brings across. I think my favorite part of this book, even though I've said I like a lot of things about it, my favorite, the top thing that I love the most, are the themes that Abraham has brought across and the things that he wants you to think about. I have said in another one of my videos, I love books that challenge me. I love books that make me think about topics and themes outside of the story. And this book does that. The main themes, I have notes. I think I'm always going to have notes when I do this, guys. He talks about love and trust in this story. It's a main theme, but the romance in this story isn't cheesy in any way. It's incredibly realistic. And you think and see and talk about love and trust from a younger generation and an older generation. In the way that he has brought across these relationships and the interactions between the characters when they're talking about love, when they're, with the person that they do love, like, it's so realistic. And then you come away from it, or you see what happens as the story progresses, and the actions of characters just seem so like something that would happen in real life. It's one of the most realistic portrayals of complex relationships I've ever read. And this tiny little fantasy novel, like, my brain, I would pause and be like, I can't believe that this is so well done while I was reading this. And one of the big things that's asked multiple times is, can you love someone without being able to trust them? Which is not a question that I thought would be posed in a fantasy novel. I thought, that would be more for literary fiction, or if it was brought up in a fantasy novel, it wouldn't be this carefully tended idea and question that is brought throughout the entire story. There's 2 quotes in here, and the first time this question really comes across, it's 2 of our younger characters talking about it, and one of them says, do you think you can love someone and not trust them? Another character says, we're born to odd lives. If we waited for people we trusted, I think we might never love anyone. And then fast forward, 75 pages, and then a younger character asks of an older character the same question. It says, can you love someone you don't trust? And they say, absolutely. I have a sister I wouldn't lend 2 copper links if I wanted them back. The problem with loving someone you don't trust is finding the right distance. That quote, guys. I read that and my heart bottomed out. And I stopped reading and just sat there and thought about that question before going back to the book and continuing to read, because I couldn't stop reading this, but it's so good. I never thought that I'd find something like that in a fantasy novel, and I was so surprised. In a good way, in a happy way, that this is a theme that we're going to explore in these novels, and that Daniel Abraham is taking so much care with it and not making it tropey. There is a love triangle in this book, and it is the best love triangle I have ever read. There are wonderful fantasy books that I appreciate and I love very, very, very much. I mean, there's a love triangle in Stormlight Archive, and it's not done half as well as this one is. And those books are thousands of pages long. And this is less than 400. Like, I love this. The second big theme, and it almost excites me more than the love and trust theme that I just talked about, is the concept of personhood and autonomy, and what makes a being a person. This creature, the Ondat, that has been created by Abraham and is a main focus of this story, they're basically like gods, and they have to be bound to a person. And so the question becomes, where does the line lie between the human and the undead? What makes a person a person? Do you have to be a human being with physical form to be a person? Can something that's non corporeal or spiritual in this world be considered a person if it meets these other criteria? If it has, the ability to think? I'm excited to see what happens in the second book because apparently it takes place like 14 or more years after the first one. And I think that's one of the more exciting things about this series is the 4 books take place so spread out that you follow these characters from childhood to, their old age. The pacing of the book, I think it is it's slower than a lot of other books I've read, but it's slower because there's no action happening. It's slower because it's a book of conversations. It can't be fast. And if it tried to be fast, you wouldn't be able to follow along the way that you're supposed to, and you wouldn't be able to think and let these things settle in your mind, and it would lose the impact that it has. So if you're looking for a book that you can blitz through, this is not the book for you. But if you're looking for a book that you can sit there and chew on and think about for a little bit longer than you might do with another novel, then this is definitely a good option. The setting, I picked the Grey Havens behind me actually today because it was the closest other fantasy setting that I could think of. This world is very intriguing to me, the way that Abraham has set it up. There's a lot of trade involved, and the way that the magic and these creatures, the Andat, are involved in economics and politics and the workings of this country that they are in. It's so ingenious. I don't know how Abraham sat there and thought up this whole story because it's so inventive. And as you reach the end of the story and as you learn more and more and more about what's happening, you can see the direction in which he's going to be taking these books. And it's so exciting. And so I'm sitting here like, how can I fit all 3 of the rest of the books into my June readathon prompts? Like, I'm trying to figure out how to fit them all in because I want to read them all. And I just need to know what happens in the story. I want to know what happens to these characters that I've learned to care about. And I just can't wait. Another thank you to Alan at the Library of Alexandria for introducing me to this book, introducing a lot of us to this book. He sang the praises of it for so long that I decided I need to pick it up. And it's been one of the greatest joys of my reading life in the last couple of years. It really is. And I know that sounds like crazy big praise, but I mean every word of it because I think what Daniel Abraham has done is nothing short of a masterpiece. I know that this book isn't going to be for everyone. And I don't want to give anyone overwhelming expectations as to what to assume about this book. Because like I said earlier, there may be people who straight up say this is boring. If you think it's boring, go read something else. But I would hope that everybody gives this a chance because I think that these are criminally underrated books. And that being said, Daniel Abraham, I'm even more excited now to read the Expanse books than I ever was before because if he can do this with fantasy, I can't wait to see what he does with science fiction. And I know that he's only one half of that duo, but if he does characterization in The Expanse half as well as he does it in this story, then that's going to probably be one of my favorite sci-fi series too. So I hope that you will pick up this book if you have not picked it up. I've tried my very hardest not to spoil anything. And by trying not to spoil anything, unfortunately, I wasn't able to talk about all the things that I want to talk about. So if you read this book, if you love it, I would love to talk to you about it because there's just so much to piece together in this book. So I hope you guys enjoy it. 5 out of 5 stars for me. I almost never give first books 5 out of 5 stars, but this one deserves it, I think. I hope you guys have a great day. I'll be back again with a review of Betrayal in Winter, hopefully in a couple of weeks.